Tell me about your mother a little more, because I know we talked in the last episode that she was heartbroken when you went to prison, right? Did she come visit you?
Yeah, the hardest thing, one of the hardest things, look, I faced DEA, I faced the federal government 100 times, no big thing, bring it on. I'm a tough guy. The hardest thing was facing my mom.
Yeah.
My mom, because she looked at me in prison, and I went from being, her only son, she only had one boy, me, and she said to me these words, she said, son, tell me what they're saying about you is not true.
Right.
And then I said, well, Mom, it's been just greatly exaggerated. I sold airplanes. I sold cars to these guys. They're associating me with a lot of these people. There's some truth to this. I said, but let's just not dwell on that. Let me get out of this mess that I'm in right now. And, I gave her something to hang a hat on and a little bit of ray of hope. But they were saying some really ugly things. They were saying that I killed these 4 people, guys that died in an accident that couldn't be explained, and I couldn't bring it up to anybody. I had 2 guys that died in a boating accident. One body was found eaten by sharks. The other one was not. The boat was gone. Another pilot that crashed, And so you have situations like that where the feds picked that up and they said, yeah, he killed these people and fed them to his lion. These are the kind of things that are being said about me. So I'm not a monster, man. I'm just like, guy you went to school with. I just happen to have been good at what I do. I became a smuggler.
Did she make it to see you get out of prison?
Yes, she did. And as a matter of fact, it's funny because she said to me, I was going to bring it to you, Rachel, but I got to show you that. I told my mom, they offered me the first cocaine cowboy offer. At that point, I had not been sentenced. And my lawyer said, I don't think it's really a good idea for you to promote yourself like that when you're still waiting to be sentenced. And then I had mentioned that to my mom. I said, Mom, they're offering me like a book deal, a movie deal. And then my mom said to me, oh, wow, a book deal, huh? She said, son, they wrote about a book about your father, too, which the government of Cuba wrote a book about my dad, all the great things he had done for the country, the laws that he passed in Congress as a senator. So she said to me, they wrote a book about your father, too. What is your book going to say? And I said, I don't know what you're talking about, Mom. What book? So she then said to me, haven't you brought enough shame to the family? Now you want to promote it? Those were tough words that I still live with. And then my story came about because Jonathan Walton, who was with the History Channel at the time, and he was also one of the producers of Shark Tank and American Ninja Warrior, he approached me, along with a guy by the name of David Fisher. Right. And then they wanted me, they were producing a show at the time called 10 Things You Don't Know About Abraham Lincoln, whatever. And it was one show was 10 Things You Don't Know About Pablo Escobar. Well, I was one of the 10 things. And then we became friends. And then he, and I, after I came now home 3 years later, after I just came home now, Jonathan said, why don't we do a podcast and call it Cocaine Air? Right. And then that's how this story came out.
You started to tell your story.
My kids, I asked for their approval.
Right. Amazing. A couple quick questions. So I'm sure our listeners are going to want to know, what's your situation now? Are you married?
No, I'm not. I'm not married.
Are you on Bumble?
On what?
A dating app.
No, I'm not. But maybe I haven't. I'm still fooling around with the app world.
Okay, got it. Maybe we'll put you on Bumble and see how that works for you. Because you sound like you like being married.
I like being with a beautiful, nice lady.
Right.
And I mean beautiful out and in, such as yourself.
Oh, thank you.
You're very stunning.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I like brains, too. They have to go with the beauty.
Yes. Well, you don't want some dumb girl. Because you're too smart anyway.
Exactly.
You want someone you can have a conversation.
And I don't want a yes girl either.
Right.
I want one that challenges, just don't argue.
I know people that people that have listened now to all 3 episodes are going to want to know about your father's legacy. And if you have any regrets that you didn't get to bring that sugar mill to fruition.
No, I actually went to Haiti to do the sugar mill. And now I could do the sugar mill out of my back pocket and not even feel it because I'm making so much money. Because I wanted to retire because I was making too much money, if you could believe that. It's just too much. I would never spend the money that I had. I went back to Haiti, brought my sister with me to do the sugar mill that my dad wanted me originally to do. And At that time, my sister caught this thing called pink eye. I don't know if you ever heard of that. Her eyes swelled up and she had pus coming out of her eyes. Haiti, AIDS was rampant. There was a tremendous amount of diseases. And I looked around and I reevaluated that moment. And then I, again, talked to my dad. I said, Dad, this is not the place to raise a family anymore. So I did what you wanted me to do, be a provider for the family. I provided for the family.
Amazing.
But I can't do the sugar mill here in Haiti. I want to have kids and I want to have a family.
Right.
And then that's when I decided to pack up. I said to my sister, come on, let's go home and get you to a real doctor. And then I jumped on my jet and I flew back down and took my sister to the doctors.
Right. Speaking of that, are you still flying? Are you still doing anything
I learned
with
how
boat?
to fly for one purpose. I didn't want to jump with American Airlines.
Okay.
My whole purpose was to bring marijuana back from Colombia. I never got certified, but you don't really need it.
Oh, got it. Okay.
I'm not landing in an airport. I'm landing in the jungle.
Yeah.
And then I've got Captain Jack next to me, and he was very, very good when it came to navigation and so forth. And then I brought the we're doing this attitude.
Right.
I remember a couple of times, we blew a strut. We had problems with the airplane, and he wanted to abort us, and we're not aborting anything.
Right.
We're going through with this thing.
I have a question, because you were talking about prison earlier. This is totally off topic, but I want to know, someone like you, your opinion on Epstein and whether or not somebody in jail like that could have killed themselves.
I was in that prison.
You were?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh my God, tell me. So first of all, can you explain to people what that prison was like?
That's one of the highest security prisons in the world. Why? Because New York is the centerfold for terrorism. He was in that old prison, the same place that I did about 3 years there, 2.5 years. No, I'm sorry, maybe less than a year, but I was there. I was on the 5th floor, I think it was. Very, very high security prison. Some of the people that were there, they do suicide watch, which is done by inmates. And it's funny because it's right by the courthouse. And you go there through underground tunnel.
Oh, wow.
The security is like nothing I've ever seen.
Okay.
And even the lawyers, I don't think it can even bring in watches. Very, very high security. And the walls are lined with, even though it's a concrete building, the walls are lined with steel.
Wow.
So in the dead of winter, the steel, you got condensation. You got water dripping from the walls.
Right.
The plumbing, this prison should be shut down. It's so god darn old and nasty.
Wow.
The rats are the size of a football, and they're looking at you like, why are you staring at me? I was here before you. They don't even run. They don't. I swear to God, they don't run.
Wow.
They're there, and they're eating whatever little food you've got that you buy in common. Horrible place. Did Epstein kill himself? If that's what the question that you wanted to ask me. Listen, it'd be really hard to get just a pencil in there. So I don't think Epstein is the kind of guy, his ego, I don't know anything about him other than what little I've read and what little habits he seems to have had, preference for beautiful young girls. I don't think a guy like that wants to commit suicide because he had a lot of money. And then another factor that comes to play, he had already gotten himself in trouble once before and he bought his way out.
Right.
So what
I
makes
agree.
you think that he doesn't think that for one New York second, he must have a lot of stuff in his playbook that he could push button, make calls, and things drop, disappear, unless somebody decided to disappear him?
I totally agree with you. I had a guy on my show who had been there and spent about 5 months there as well, who explained what the bedding was like, because I believe they said...
Steel beds.
Yeah, and I believe that they said that Epstein had hung himself. And he said, listen, in my experience, the sheets weren't strong enough to hang yourself.
No, that's not necessarily true.
Okay,
because
tell me.
what you do is, I taught a guy how to hang yourself.
Okay, how do you do it?
Well, you take your sheet and you braid it into a rope.
Interesting.
And you don't really hang yourself, Rachel. You snap your neck. Okay? The beds are bolted to the ground. And I told this roommate that I had, I'm going to kill myself. I'm going to kill myself. I'm so tired of hearing him telling me, I said, all right, let me help you kill yourself. Let's make your dreams come true. So I moved off the side. I said, I got a blade, which is illegal to have. I had a blade, like a razor blade broken. I said, I got an extra sheet. What are you, about 180, 190 pounds? I said, let's braid these things to be able to withstand that type of weight. So we braid a rope out of the sheets, and then you have maybe 4 feet long. You tie it to the post. You sit on top of the bed. You fold your knees, and then you jump off. You're supposed to, if you do it properly, you're supposed to snap your neck, and that's how you die. So at that time, I said, listen, man, I'm going to help you with this. I said, but I would prefer if you hang yourself outside the room, because I've been in solitary confinement for a long time before. When you hang yourself here, first of all, you're going to poop and pee all over the goddamn floor. I'm going to go into solitary again under investigation. So I said, so if you want to do me a favor before you check out, do this out there. The other option that you have, I'll give you this little razor blade. Go into the shower. Cut yourself. Don't cut yourself vertical like this. You got to do it long ways so you bleed out quicker. And if you're not going to do A or B, shut the F up. I'm tired of listening to your shit.
So what do you do?
Shut up.
Okay. All right. So your point is, though, to do it, so it doesn't matter that the sheets are thin. If he braided it a certain way, there was a way.
You could always get an extra sheet, but I don't think that. I think this guy's mindset, I'm going to get out of this mess.
Yeah.
I have enough dirt on people that I can call some favors.
One question we didn't get to at the beginning, which I think is an important question. What was the craziest or most surreal moment of your smuggling career?
Wow, that's a good one. Comes to my mind. It was really kind of cool. We're flying through the outside of Dominican Republic, which is Haiti, between there and Puerto Rico. We're coming over land, maybe at 300, 400 feet, flying very low. And we flew over a Coast Guard cutter, if you can imagine that. It was dusk. It was just starting to turn dark. And we fly right over the deck. And this Coast Guard cutter had a balloon tethered radar, and they were there to detect low-flying airplanes and speedboats. They were not supposed to be there. So now Jack, who would stutter whenever he got nervous, he says to me, do you think they saw us? I said, did you see the goddamn guy's glasses? I said, we flew right over the deck. Of course they saw us, right over the deck. And lower than the balloon that they were floating. So what do we do now? I said, I don't know, man. Let me think. So after a couple of minutes, we were heading, let's say, left, right? In that direction. I'm just saying left and right just to make it simple. And so I said, okay, let's climb. So we climbed to about 4,000 feet. He says, why are we going to climb? They'll be able to spot us on the radar. I said, they already know we're here. So we're in a light airplane. How the government then at that point, how they think is they look at the kind of airplane that you've got. They do a radius and they say, well, based on this type of an airplane, even with extra fuel, they can only land here, here, and here. So they dispatch a group, reception group, where they think that you have to land because you're going to run out of fuel. So if we're going to the left, and now we're at 4,000 feet, and they say, okay, you got these 3-4 islands. These are the only places that they could land. So we fly like that for about almost 40 minutes, and we're giving them a target, a directional target. Then we dropped out of the air and got on the deck. I set the altimeter on the airplane at 75 feet, 80 feet, and now it's almost total darkness. You can fly the plane right into the water, very, very dangerous, and we're flying right on top of the water, and we doubled back those 30, 40 minutes, and we went right instead of left. And I landed the airplane with about maybe 10, 15 minutes worth of fuel. And now it's pretty scary, and it was kind of cool because they were looking for us over here. We doubled back below radar and went the opposite direction. That was one incident. Another incident was we're running out of fuel. I couldn't find the landing strip in Colombia. The trees are very tall in the jungle, and they're telling me they could hear me, but we can't see them. Where we land, we set 2 lights, and we land in between these 2 lights.
Okay.
So at that point in time, I couldn't see that. So I said, light some goddamn tires on fire, so we could see smoke coming up through the clouds. So we were able to land the plane. At that point, I said, this shit's never going to happen to me again. I came back, I went to my guy Q, and I said, man, we almost died out there. We couldn't find the landing strip. The clouds were too thick. It was a low ceiling, high trees. He says, how can we correct this? Let's make an airport out there. How are we going to do that? Well, then we set like a transponder, like a signal that'll go beep, automatic directional signal finding. So at that point, we send this equipment down there that would send a signal. My airplane had the capability honing in on that signal, and now we were just directly flying no matter what. We flew directly to that spot. That was kind of scary. 2 moments that come out of my, that I remember that stand out.
Right. Something that's interesting about you, and probably a skill, or I don't know what I would call it, that you possess, is it seems like you are someone who doesn't deal with problems, you deal with solutions.
Oh, absolutely.
And so that's probably what made you as successful as you became, and what gives you the opportunity to succeed now that you've changed your life.
Yes.
And the second thing that I've noticed is you're not scared to fail, almost.
No.
Like it's okay because you've learned the lessons. It's okay because you know there's another option. Talk a little bit about that, because I think people, you were talking about what people are like now and how much different it is from the 70s and 80s, but so many people are so quick to do things and try things, and they don't want to fail. They're scared of failure, where if you really study the biggest, most successful people, They failed, and that was the turning point in their career where they learned how to succeed.
That's right. Yes, it's funny you should say that, because I've had to repeat that over and over in my private world. Like I tell people that I don't want to hear the problem one more time. I can't change that. But what I can change is the solution. So I can't deal in that. Let's concentrate and focus on how we get better the situation. I'm only going to make that mistake one time. I used to say all the time, that dog bit me once, it's not going to bite me twice. I don't make the same mistake twice. Failure to me is when you decide to quit on your own, when you decide to give up. That's failure. The fact that you fall down, I always tell people, try to fall forward. That way when you get back up, you're 3 steps ahead. So
that's great.
And, when I've heard people say, oh, Tito, you're really lucky. Luck is for the church. I don't want to sound negative. But, I found out the harder I work, the luckier I get.
Yeah.
So, and that's the truth. You got to dedicate yourself, stay focused, don't give up. When everybody else is throwing their arms up in the air and quitting, no, not if you want to be successful. You just got to keep at it, and you'll turn the corner.
That's a good point that you make. I want to talk about a message that you would give to young people that are listening that, they're drawn to quick money, which a lot of people are right now. Right. What would you say? And kind of a sidebar with that question is, do you have regrets? Like, what would you say to people that are just in it for quick money, and how it's affected your life by doing that?
Well, it's a great question, and I've spoken in front of schools before, and it's hard to tell you that I didn't like what I did, because I got caught up in the whole thing. It wasn't just the money, it was the power that it brought. The highs were highs, but the lows are so low that you will never be able to outlive it, and it's just not really worth it.
Yeah.
I told, in prison, I changed a lot of people's lives around by telling them, listen, the same effort that you put in selling a bag of weed or whatever, put that same effort into maybe going out and getting a $200 car, cleaning it, armor all the tires, put it on a street. You don't have a lot, put it on a street corner that's busy. Put a for sale sign on it. You bought it for $200, sell it for $4. You doubled your money, and you don't have to turn around and be looking over your shoulder. You put that effort. Set realistic goals. Don't try to become a rocket scientist or a doctor. There's a lot of honor in being a carpenter and just doing different types of jobs. I'm proud to say that 2 or 3 of the people that I influenced, one of them is very rich, into the millions of dollars, not dozens of millions.
Yeah.
You know how? Landscaping. Started out with one lawnmower. One lawnmower, push lawnmower. And from there, he's got 20, 30 employees. So these are attainable goals that you can actually achieve. Be realistic about yourself, and don't give up, man. Don't. Giving up is for losers.
Yeah. Yeah. What is on your bucket list? You still, I mean, you have had so many different lives.
Yeah,
And it sounds like when you hear your story, you really realize that life almost goes slow because you've had so many things happen, right?
Yeah.
Tell me what is next for you.
Next for me, I've got, mixed feelings. And I've discussed this with you, Rachel. I'm doing skincare. Out of all the crazy things, why skincare? As I mentioned before, I was looking for something that would have continuity. So I got into the idea of doing like sunscreen. Created a company called Miami Sun. I didn't want to really say the name because I wanted to isolate that from what I'm doing now. I don't need any money from anything here. Miami Sun is standing on his own two legs, and I'm very proud of that. And at the end of the day, when I'm dead and gone, and, when somebody says to my kid, well, your dad was a big-time smuggler, then my kid could turn around and say, yeah, but he also became the #1 guy in skincare, Miami Sun, and he's done a lot of good for society. Part of the money is going to go back into kids, and I want to create like a foundation for children to be able to be exposed to a guy like me, to be able to sit there and say, listen, it's not all it's cracked up to be.
Right.
It really isn't.
Right.
Hard work really pays off. And look at me now. I'm doing it. It's happening.
Yeah.
And I'm doing it again. No credit, no credibility, and a tainted history that I'm going to turn around and polish it up and be brighter than I was before.
Yeah. Is there any, by the way, with no doubt, I mean,
Thank you. Thank you for the vote of confidence.
Is there anything on your bucket list, though, you haven't done, a place you haven't been that you want to go to, something you really want to do,
I've done pretty much everything.
I know you have.
I told one prosecutor that threatened to give me life, I said, listen, man, don't threaten me anymore. Set me down on an electric chair, and I'll push my own button, because I'm the kind of guy that you pay money to go to the movies to see a guy like me. I've done it all. I've been there and really done it. So, no, I haven't. Regrets. Even the downside was an experience, so I don't have any regrets. It made me appreciate this moment with you, a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
I don't need 4 women in my life anymore. I need one good one.
Right.
And it just really made me appreciate more the moment. When you're living such a fast life, Rachel, you never enjoy the moment.
Yeah.
I'm with one girl, I'm thinking about the next one that I'm going to be with. Right. So I don't even get to enjoy that. Holidays were a pain in the butt. Days like Christmas, I have to go to 4 different homes and come up with 4 different lies to be able to survive that.
And remember who's getting what gift. And
no, it's funny because I gave them all the same cards.
Oh.
And I gave them all dogs, and I named them the same, and they were all baby.
Oh,
so
my God.
I eliminate mistakes that way.
That is a great way to eliminate mistakes, that is sure. You talked a little bit about what your son would say about you, but how do you want to be remembered? What would be your legacy? Would it be as a smuggler, a survivor, a cautionary tale?
I'll tell you what I told one of my wives. Don't give up. I don't give up. And remember, when I die, here's what I want you to write on my tombstone. She goes, what? I says, he might just come back.